Morning, all. Now, normally I turn off the heater before I record a video, but that's just she's bathing herself in front of the heater. I can't turn off the heat source when she's doing that. It's just too darn cute. All right, here's the day video to start things off for your Sunday, November the 17th. Starting with what we knew was going to happen. Ryan Reaves throws that dangerous hit to the head on Darnell Nurse. He has a hearing today. It's not an in-person hearing, so it's going to be 5 games or less. My guess is probably 2 or 3. Just that seems to be the track record. Although Ryan Reaves does have a previous history, I don't know if that's going to factor in. I don't know if it's recent enough to factor in, but we'll see how many games he's out for. We should find that out later on in the day. Pionk was fined $5,000 for clipping on Jesper Boquist in that game last night against Florida. A game that got pretty hotly contested in that third period, and there was a lot of punching and disagreements going on. So, yeah, Pionk gets fined. It's a small amount of money, comparatively speaking, to how much he makes as an NHL player, which leads to all the other discussions we see around that. But again, it's more of a slap on the wrist, and because of the fact that they're going to play each other again, and it's a back-to-back situation, this may very well just be the NHL's way of saying, hey, we saw that last night, knock it off. Georgiev, upper body injury for Colorado, has been placed on IR. So we might see more of Trent Miner in the net for Colorado. We'll definitely see Annunen in the meantime. And I mean, do they regret waiving Kakinen at this point? So for Georgiev, it's too bad too, because it looked like he was starting to get back into the swing of things, and his numbers were getting a little bit better. And now he's going to be out. He's considered day to day, so with him being on IR, it has to be a week from when they're placed on IR, but it can be retroactive to a previous date. So we'll see how long Georgiev ends up being out. But it is something to keep an eye on for Colorado, a team that has been struggling with their goaltending this year. Elliot Friedman talking about the Boston Bruins and reporting that there's some discussions in the organization about their current status and that they're looking to shake things up after a mediocre start. I think the problems with Boston is it's their center spot. They're 1 through 4 down the middle, just can't compete with a lot of other teams in the NHL. It's an opinion I've held for basically this entire season so far, and I haven't seen anything to tell me that that's changing. Even though Zacha has been better over the last, I would say, 10 days, but still, Boston, that's, I think, their biggest weakness. I think they could use another point producer on the blue line as well. And the items that they're looking for, and Friedman says this too, that the forward with bite that they're looking for, and apparently Nashville's looking for too, they don't come over cheap. That's not a player that you're going to acquire for cheap. If it's a top 9 forward who goes out there and hits and has some grit to his game, teams aren't just giving those players away unless they have bad contracts. And of course, Boston isn't in a position to take on a bad contract right now either. So they're kind of up against it. I do feel like for Boston, the smartest thing for them to do would be to, realize this may very well not be the year, and do something similar to what the Rangers did, 5 years ago, where they decided, well, this just isn't working, so we're gonna, do a quick retool. It worked well for the Rangers. I'm not talking about like selling everybody off or giving up, just being realistic about, okay, so if we do patch things up, maybe we make the playoffs, but what's gonna happen and all that. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'm just realistic on Boston. I don't think that they're a cup contender this season, and so I'm okay with this season seeing them, miss the playoffs, win the draft lottery, that kind of thing. Because really, that's what Boston needs. Boston needs that infusion of a young superstar player. They haven't had that in some time, and it would definitely go a long way. I don't think they've got over the loss of Bergeron either. They had a very good regular season last year, but nobody's going to replace Bergeron. So the only hope is that Poitras can become a version of that, similar to like with Lundell in Florida and Barkov, where they're similar forwards, but obviously Barkov's at a higher level than Lundell. So, anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Seth Jones on IR, and that's in red because that happened yesterday, while all the hockey was going on. Crevier being recalled by the Chicago Blackhawks, so they'll give him a bit of a chance to look on the blue line. It is interesting too to see how quickly, and I've noticed that this year too. It feels like media and in some case fans too. They react very very quickly after one game or a couple of games, and yeah, I don't think that Chicago's fallen back into where they were last season. I think the biggest issue Chicago's having is trying to get Bedard's goal scoring going and rotating which forwards he's with. I think you're almost better off to leave him with a couple of forwards and just work on the chemistry from there. Just, flat out ask him, say which two wingers do you think bring out the most in your game, and just let it go from there. I would think he would probably have a good idea at this point in the season who would help. But Chicago, we knew they weren't going to be a playoff team. I do still think the record's going to be better this year than it was last season. Chytil. The situation around Chytil, there's not a lot of information out there, which is troubling. And when you hear the way that the Rangers themselves are talking about it, talking about his teammates and how difficult this is, you understand that this is a player with an extensive concussion history that's kept him out of the lineup for long periods of time. And it does look like that's what he's dealing with, though I haven't seen that 100% confirmed. It's just being referred to as an upper body injury. He's still being evaluated, and with his concussion history, I'll agree with the article I was reading. I believe Molly Walker wrote it on. You're not going to put him on an airplane when he's got that concussion history. Agreed. 100% totally agreed with that. So Chytil's out, and I think you're better off being careful with him until you have some idea for how long he's going to need to be out. So my thoughts with Chytil. He is a very good young forward for the New York Rangers, but at this point, with the amount of concussions he's had, and if this is another one, you get to that point where you're asking, okay, you've got your professional career, and then you've got, your quality of life that you're thinking about too. And so at some point in time, you reach that crossroads, and there have been plenty of players who sadly have seen their careers shortened by injury. This is part of the reason why I have no problem with how much money players make. I don't. Because for every pro player that has concussion histories that, knock them out of the game, there are plenty of players who don't even get to the NHL that have that same experience. There are players in junior that go through concussions and all of that fun stuff too. So these guys go through a lot. I have no problem with how much money they get paid. So I wanna go through this a little bit. So I've seen some people asking about, hey, Carolina's number one in the power rankings. Spoiler alert and all that. But the reality is that I do believe Carolina right now, looking at the standings and looking at everything else, I do think they're playing the best hockey. So they won 5-2 in Vegas on Monday. They're the only team that has won a game in Las Vegas that isn't the Vegas Golden Knights so far this season. And then they lost in Utah, and people are focusing on this a lot. Like, they lost in Utah. They also outshot them 50-21 and outplayed them really badly. Vejmelka stole that game. That was absolute theft by Vejmelka. So after that game was done, I did not move Carolina down. I moved Utah up. I was like, that's Vejmelka pulling him up. That's not the Carolina played badly. And then last night, Carolina comes home and they win 4-0 against Ottawa. And I understand, that nothing, Sens fans aren't happy about it. They think that should be a 1, but it's a shutout for Spencer Martin. And right now, Carolina has a 750 points percentage overall in the National Hockey League, which is second behind the Winnipeg Jets. They are 10-2 in their last 12 games. So the focus on the game in Utah, okay, but again, I think they outplayed Utah badly in that game. The goaltending was the difference there, and they are 10-2 in their last 12 games. The Winnipeg Jets, again, they spent 4 weeks at number 1. I do hope they get back to number 1, but we shall see. And then I've seen some comments too about my wife being in that video. Last night I was like, hey, let's just do this tonight. This could be fun. And she enjoyed doing that, but a lot of the comments I see, it's part of the reason why I like it, because I see the comments of, I wish your wife was in more videos. But whenever she is, there's always like that negativity that ends up getting attached. And so that's part of the reason why she doesn't end up being in more videos. And in last night's power rankings, she didn't really say much of anything because it's not much of anything she can say. when it comes to, where the teams are on the board and all that. So anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. We are doing a live stream today. Also, we are going out tonight. It is a date night, which we are going to be having some date nights during the season. So we're going out tonight. We're going to Vancouver. There's a musical we're going to. We're not going to the Grey Cup. I don't really have any interest in the Grey Cup. Apologies for that. I know I'm Canadian. I'm supposed to, but I don't really. And yeah, and there's a Canuck game tonight too, but I'm not going to that. The tickets for what we're going to were much cheaper than the Canuck game, so we're gonna go and do that anyways. But yeah, thank you guys so much for all your support. It does mean a lot. Again, don't forget that I am, including these in the Hockey Guy podcast, which is attached to YouTube. I've seen people asking about, my other podcasts and Spotify and things like that. Totally understandable that people would be asking about the other podcast. I think the most that podcast ever generated in a month was 90 cents. I think that's the most that I ever got was 90 cents in a month. So it just got a little bit difficult for me to do that. But doing it this way, where I turn the videos into, podcast form and all that, that's much easier, and it works with what I'm already doing. So for people consuming that way, thank you guys so much for that. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much as always. I will talk to you again soon.